Coming up on the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast, what does the GM strike mean for plants throughout Indiana? Powderkeg names its Tech Culture Award winners. We take you inside one of Indy's newest seafood restaurant offerings. The INnovators with Dr. K checks in with Coatchex. The Regenstrief Institute continues to innovate. We spotlight the largest youth soccer club in the state, and our insiders weigh in on the week's top stories. Welcome to the Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. I'm Andy Ober. The United Auto Workers Union, representing nearly 50,000 GM workers nationwide, went on strike last week. GM has plants in Fort Wayne, Bedford, Marion, and Kokomo. Ball State University Center for Business and Research Director Mike Hicks joined Inside Indiana Business host Gary Dick to talk about the impact on Indiana.
We haven't really dealt with one of these. I remember covering many strikes back in the 70s and 80s, but these don't seem to come along as often. As you look, does either side have leverage here?
Well, I think GM probably is approaching this in a better position. Good profitability this year. The economy is slowing, so they may not be as anxious to get everybody back on the production line right now. And the UAW faces a really existential problem with membership. They're well off their high of 1.5 million back in the late 70s, lost 8% in 2018 at a time when manufacturing employment rose. So this is sort of an existential crisis for them to expand, or at least expand membership or control the bleeding at this point.
So the UAW, they want members, right? They want membership. What's the GM after? Some work rules, flexibility, those
right. So GM really wants to maintain membership for their current members and expand it to those second-tier workers that are now getting less benefits and fewer wages. And then GM really needs, more than anything else, is flexibility down the road. They face an uncertain future. Their cars aren't selling well. Their trucks are selling well. They're looking at the EV or hybrid market. And so that's going to take different plant and equipment and a very different workforce in many places. So they need that flexibility over the next decade or so.
As you look at the potential impact here in Indiana, the strike's only a few days old here, but is the impact that could happen here different than it would have been, say, 10 years, 15, 20 years ago when union membership was much higher?
Right. Well, we look back to the last strike with 2007, that was 48 hours. The strike before that was 21 days. So we're now into a big strike. Certainly much bigger employment. We had about 250,000 more manufacturing workers back in the late 90s. A good many of them were UAW workers. We're down to really 4 plants being struck. The big effect will be in Fort Wayne, but it'll be felt more in Kokomo and Bedford and Marion because they're smaller communities.
Yeah. Let's talk about Fort Wayne, the only GM final assembly plant, truck assembly plant there. And GM has looked at that plant really in a positive light, investing a lot of money there.
Right. So in the wake of the Daniels reform to our tax system and the Great Recession, GM looked around and said, wow, Indiana's a great place to do business. Put about $80 billion, if memory serves right, in that plant, which I think is a good signal that that facility is going to be safe for a long time. I think the other places are more nimble, pretty high productivity, so I think they're reasonably safe. The danger for the UAW is membership in the older plants in Ohio and Michigan.
Okay, as we wrap up here, as you look into the crystal ball, how do you see this going? I mean, there's no way to really tell, obviously, but in terms of if this is going to be a prolonged strike, or do you think both sides have some incentive maybe to come to an agreement?
Well, so the UAW members want to come to agreement. The UAW can't give a lot on its membership goals. I think by GM pulling the health benefits at the start of the next month, 1st of October, I think that signals this is going to be a longer strike. They wouldn't have risked that amount of ill will if they thought this was going to be over tomorrow or next week.
All right, it's a big story in the manufacturing sector in Indiana. General Motors strike continues. Mike Hicks from Ball State University, as always, thanks very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Still to come, a new $2.5 million restaurant opens in downtown Indy, and we get an update on Coatchex. But first, Socio, a software-as-a-service platform that helps companies optimize their big events, has attracted customers, including Google, Microsoft, and Pinterest. It has also won one of tech networking platform Powderkeg's inaugural Indiana Breakout Tech Culture Awards. Powderkeg CEO Matt Hunkler and Socio founder Yarkin Sakucholu came in studio to talk about the award and the importance of culture.
Matt, I'm going to start with you. the whole idea for these Breakout Tech Culture Awards. What's it all about? I know culture is the main reason people go to work at tech companies, also the main reason they leave a tech company, right?
That's exactly right. When we did the tech census last year, that's what we found is that is the thing that people care the most about when they're looking at what company to join and spend literally more than half their waking hours going to work. It's also the number one pain point for these scaling tech companies. There's an 85% surge in tech jobs in just the last year, but there has not been an 85% surge in tech talent just yet. So really, culture is the biggest competitive advantage for those companies looking to attract that talent.
Talk about the program this year. Pleased and honored to be a part of the event this week here in Indianapolis. Incredible participation.
Oh, it was great. I mean, it was a packed house, of course, because you were there. We had the star power, but we had 267 companies nominated across the state. The award-winning companies, there were over 40 of them there last night accepting awards. Each company received badges that told which awards they are, which are displayed on their culture profile on powderkeg.com. But then we also had 12 category winners, including categories like career path, product team culture. But then we also had an overall culture award for the biggest average score across all of these various companies.
And that goes to Socio, right? And Yarkin, congratulations on that. Give us the thumbnail, the kind of the business model for the company. Found a great story. Founded at Purdue while you were a student at Purdue, right?
Yeah, absolutely. My co-founders and I were students at Purdue. We actually attended a lot of events, and I personally was involved with planning an event as well. And I realized that events are very powerful when they're done right, but it's very difficult to get them right. And our software helps companies do that.
How? Give us kind of a layman's terms and how the software, how it works.
Absolutely. So when you're planning an event, there are a lot of softwares that you use before the event, during the event, and after the event. Our software focuses on inside the event. We have 3 products. Our event apps, which allows any organization to build an app in a few hours to become the hub of their events, basically. We have a leader-level product that allows exhibitors and sponsors to monetize their events, monetize these events and get return on their investment. And finally, we have a live display product that allows event organizers to inform and engage their attendees using big screens in events.
Well, you've got some really high-profile companies, Microsoft, Google, Hyundai, a number of companies, and you're also scaling up in terms of employment. Already have 50 employees in downtown Indianapolis, looking to hire more.
Yes.
Talk about who you're looking for.
Absolutely. We are hiring, I believe, for 22 positions right now. We have recently passed 50 employees. And I mean, we are looking for passionate people who are looking to move fast and make something bigger than, be a part of something bigger than themselves. Yeah,
and Matt, great example of the tech ecosystem that really is percolating here. As you look at what's next, for this event, you see scaling this event even beyond Indianapolis, right?
Absolutely. We really did this tech census nationwide last year in more than half dozen cities. And it's the same thing you see in Nashville, Denver, Raleigh, Durham. So we'll be doing the Breakout Tech Culture Awards in other communities, which will be amazing for growing the overall awareness of tech in these hubs like Indianapolis and across the state.
All right, the Breakout Tech Culture Awards, first year one, a great success. Matt Hunkler and also Yarkin Sokocolo.
Later in the podcast, we get an update on a homegrown Shark Tank success story, and the Regenstrief Institute details its latest work in the medical field. But now, a new East Coast-style seafood restaurant has opened in downtown Indianapolis. FK Restaurant Group has invested $2.5 million in Pier 48 Fish House and Oyster Bar. CEO Fred Knipscher joined us with more.
I want to get to Pier 48, which just opened, a brand new restaurant offering in downtown Indianapolis. But your story is an interesting one. You grew up out on the East Coast in Boston, spent some time in Fort Wayne, certainly. But talk about your professional hockey career, because you were a hockey player before a restaurateur.
Yeah, my old life as a hockey player, and loved every minute of it. Was lucky enough and fortunate enough to play college hockey on a scholarship, and from there was able to sign a free agent contract with the Boston Bruins, which was, my childhood favorite team. And I always tell people I didn't even dream that big because I never thought that would be possible. But was able to do that, and then played in a few other communities. St. Louis, I was with the Chicago Blackhawks organization. Actually played for the Indiana Ice, or the Indianapolis Ice at the time when I was with the Hawks minor league team. and loved every minute of it. Had a great time. Got to travel the world playing a sport that I loved.
Yeah, and when you were in Boston, you got to play in front of family and friends.
Yeah.
And that family has a rich heritage in the fishing business, right?
Yeah, we have a pretty unique story. I've got some extended family, cousins of mine that live in Maine, about 3 hours from Boston, and they own a fishery. It's called Osher's Wharf. It's in South Bristol, Maine, and it's pretty cool. Every day they go out and they bang it out and they fish and they catch everything from live lobsters to haddock, cod, tuna, you name it, they catch it. So it's a pretty tough business, but a pretty rewarding business as well.
Okay, that's the direct connection to Pier 48, brand new restaurant downtown Indianapolis, right across from Bankers Life Fieldhouse. Talk about the restaurant and then also how you're going to get seafood actually from your family operation out east, right?
Yeah, so our restaurant is, we'd like to say seat at table, and there's some nice pictures on that you just saw from our boats, but we have actually one boat that's dedicated to us for our fish. It's called the Terra Lynn 2. It goes out anywhere from 3 to 5 days a week, and when it's on its way back in from fishing, I'll get a call and they'll say, hey, here are the 4 or 5 species we caught today. What would you like? They come in, they pack it on ice, and we overnight it on FedEx, and we have it at our door the next day. So it was swimming, yesterday, and we get it the next day. So, and then with our lobsters, those come from my other cousin's boat called the Rachel Marie. That's his wife's name, and same thing. We call him, let him know what we want, and he packs them up and sends them, and we have them the next day. So.
All right, we only have about 30 seconds, but you're bullish on Indianapolis as a restaurant market because you've got Pier 48 downtown. Yeah. You're partnering with Sun King on a property in Broad Ripple, also opening in the yard up in Fishers.
Yeah, we've got 3 great projects coming. Sun King kind of came out of nowhere, and about 3 weeks ago got a call, and we ended up teaming up with them, and that's going to be called Offshore by Pier 48. We're going to hire about 200 people in the next year, and we're super excited. And then our next spot we're looking at is Fort Wayne, Indiana. So we're excited to grow.
Lots going on in Fort Wayne. Fred Knipscher is CEO at FK Restaurant Group, Pier 48. Thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot. Appreciate it.
Remember, you can catch Inside Indiana Business Television on stations throughout the state every weekend. Head to InsideIndianaBusiness.com to check listings. Still to come, the Regenstrief Institute is looking to make advances in Alzheimer's, dementia, and more. And we spotlight a youth soccer club serving thousands of Hoosier kids. But first, Derek Paquet has seen his Coatchex platform company Chexology grow from an unfurnished Indianapolis basement to an appearance on Shark Tank and global success. Now in New York, the company is bringing development back to Indy. Paquet joined Donald Korotko on the Innovators with Dr. K.
Kind of review for our audience the original idea when we say Coatchex and it was on Shark Tank. What was that original idea?
Yeah, so when I was an undergrad in the Kelly School in your spine and sweat course, I started the Hoosier Coatchex, which was a pop-up coat check business. And very quickly, we realized the process for checking coats was very antiquated. You give someone a paper claim ticket, they easily lose it. It doesn't really claim what you checked in. So the idea was we built an app where it takes a picture of your item when you check in, and it sends you a text with your claim confirmation. And that way, it gets rid of the lines and gets rid of the claims.
Fantastic. But now you've got some new innovations and developments. What are those?
Yeah, so the next stage is we're really trying to get rid of that physical line. So the next features we're rolling out are really, you just ordered your Uber. You need to leave and get in that Uber, or that extra charge is going to come on if you wait too long. So what we've done is you can now request back, I need my coat, I need my bag, and it's ready right there at the front door. Skip the line.
Fantastic. And I understand you're going to do some relocation from New York back to Indianapolis. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's why I'm here. We recently acquired a software consultancy team here called Fretless, and they are going to open up our new product development office here in New York. It includes Davey Strauss, the co-founder, as well as Dave Jones, Dana Palazzo, and we even recruited the head of mobile from Sallie Mae. Mohammed Hamdouchi is going to be based here, and they're going to build it out.
Fantastic. Describe some of these new markets for these new innovations. What are you looking at here?
Yeah, so what was really interesting is, on Shark Tank we mentioned this could be used for more than coat checking. Think bag check valet, but we realized that you can inverse the process. So think beach rentals, ski rentals. And we had all this feedback coming in from customers. And two great examples of an application that they're using our app for is when you go to a big event like US Open golf or tennis, your phone dies over the course of the day. Companies like Amex are now using our system to lend out phone charging cases. So you can be with your phone as it charges. And these silent discos, they started with like these 200-person parties in the subways in New York, are now doing 6,000-person parties on the beaches in LA, on the Brooklyn Bridge, and they can get away with this because of there's no noise. So there's entrepreneurs using this application to really expand the shared economy, which is really cool.
Fantastic. So what are some current capital funding sources for you?
Yeah, we raised $2 million. It started here in Indy. That's where we really started the funding, and we're always looking for strategic investors that can help us, growth opportunities in our different verticals, but also can help us scale internally as well.
And then, what do you see as the growth potential now, moving forward here?
Yeah, so the shared economy, you see the Ubers, the Airbnbs, and even all these scooters, all over the city now. The millennials are, not hoarding products as much. They're seeing how they can share products to have better experiences, and we see our application as a tool to enable these entrepreneurs, and businesses to provide these types of offerings. So we see this marketplace just really blowing up and growing.
Fantastic. What are the immediate steps ahead for this next year?
Yeah, I think we're really focusing now on hotels. One, they have Coatchex, they have bag check, they have valet services, but that's a place when you go to a hotel, you're away from your home and all the products you own. So imagine going to the airport, dropping off your coat in Indy, getting to the Bahamas, and right when you get there, you get to the hotel, you can rent some snorkel gear, a sea scooter, and use that while you're there. Have these new experiences with all these new products you usually may not have ever got to try. So we just see hotels as a big landscape to really
Fantastic. Well, as I do on each and every show with the innovators, I try to give some prescriptions. So Dr. K's prescriptions for you, I came up with the 3 nevers for growing innovative firms. And so the first is never assume the adoption of these new areas by your current customer base. You can't assume that. They may, but you've got these new markets to look at. Second is never believe you're ahead of the competition, because I think you are, and I think you will be, but as you know, the minute you're good, they start to follow right on. And the third one is never think you have all the answers. And I always say, get that customer feedback like you're doing and like you have done, which I want you to continue, because I think that customer feedback is now moving you in these new directions. So you're doing fantastic, and we want you to continue to be a huge success.
Thanks,
guys. So Derek, where can the audience find you?
Yeah, we're Chexology on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. But if you want to just email us directly, info@chexology.com, you'll get to me and we'll have a conversation.
Fantastic. Well, we wish you all the best.
Yeah, thanks for your time, guys.
So there you go, Gary. We've got a very proud graduate of the Indiana University Entrepreneurship Program who's now expanding, and he's developing things right here in Indiana.
Later in the podcast, Indiana's largest youth soccer club is growing again, and our insiders give perspective on the top stories of the week. But now, researchers at the Regenstrief Institute in Indianapolis continue to work on cutting-edge medical research. Their current work focuses on issues ranging from opioids to back pain to whether certain drugs cause Alzheimer's and dementia. CEO Peter Emby joined us on the Business of Health.
I think a lot of people, maybe they've heard the Regenstrief name, many have not, and have no idea of the world-class institution that this is right here in Indianapolis and celebrating 50 years.
Yeah, it's really a well-kept secret, and so we're very excited to be here to talk more about the Regenstrief Institute. As you say, 50 years. So if I could just say a little bit, that in 1969 is when we were started and launched by Sam Regenstrief, who was a regional entrepreneur and really saw the vision for how to improve efficiency and effectiveness of healthcare. And since then, over the last 50 years, the Regenstrief Institute has done some of the most pioneering work in the field of health and healthcare to bring information, technology, data, and care models to improve practice. And that's really what we continue to do today.
We talk about data and analytics in healthcare. And really, again, to kind of underscore what you're saying, much of it, happening here at the Regenstrief Institute, and really you can trace back to work here in Indy.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, across the world, the Regenstrief Institute is recognized as the pioneer in that regard. many people don't know, the earliest electronic health records, health information technology solutions, a lot of the standards that underlie the current environment were really invented right here in Indianapolis at the Regenstrief Institute, and then led to the development of a lot of what we think of as modern day health IT.
Yeah, there's also, I remember we've reported on it in the past, the Indiana Health Information Exchange, which is another unique aspect as well.
That's right. In fact, the Indiana Health Information Exchange is still considered the largest and most robust health information exchange in the country. And it emerged from work that actually happened at the Regenstrief Institute. And now our close partners who run the Indiana Health Information Exchange are an independent nonprofit, but it really came out of work that started at Regenstrief.
And you talk about some of the specific work. I mentioned the opioid crisis and IU's grand challenges. I know the Regenstrief Institute very much involved in that as well.
Absolutely. As a support organization to the university and the School of Medicine, we work closely with our collaborators to address that. So taking the data that we have available and then working with our data partners across the state, whether it's state agencies or other institutes and the like, to pull data together in order to be able to better characterize and understand the crisis and be able to address it. Obviously, a terrible crisis for our state and one that we need to address. So we've stepped up to create what we call the Indiana Addictions Data Commons to be able to have a data resource that then many can leverage for that.
Collaborations and partnerships are very important with universities, but also private sector companies. And talk about those, the importance and some of the variety of those partnerships.
Yeah, really critical, and as you say, quite varied. So, for instance, another grand challenge we're very much involved in with the Indiana CTSI and the IU School of Medicine is the Precision Health Grand Challenge that spans IU. And in that case, we partner very closely, for instance, with Lifomic, one of our leading companies here in Indianapolis. We also have collaborations, longstanding collaborations for several years now with a lot of our colleagues in industry and pharmaceutical companies, be they outside the state like Merck and Pfizer, or internally with our colleagues across the state, with Eli Lilly, of course, right here, and Roche. We work closely with the Indiana Biosciences Research Institute and others on issues of diabetes and tobacco cessation, as well as the opioid crisis.
Yeah, and you also, I know, have an interest in connecting with entrepreneurs and innovators and really trying to get some of these great ideas and things out to the market, right?
Yeah, it's really critical to our mission. You know, we recognize that doing good research is very important and being able to get the knowledge out there is important. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't have an impact on people and it doesn't actually make its way to help people's lives, then it's not sufficient. Our mission is to change people's health for the better. And so a lot of that does, in fact, require commercialization. So whether it's our internal innovations, some of which we launch as startups or we might license or what have you, or whether it's partnering with external companies, we do a lot of that. And increasingly, we're doing more because it really is about getting our discoveries out into practice and making sure people benefit from them.
Amazing work being done at the Regenstrief Institute here in Indianapolis, now 50 years old, which is quite a milestone. Peter Imby, thanks for joining us. We'll talk to you soon.
Thank you, Gary.
All right.
Still to come, perspective on the top stories of the week from our panel of insiders. But first, Indy Premier has grown into the largest youth soccer club in the state with thousands of players. The organization is now growing again. Executive Director Brian Mickle joined Bill Benner with more on Inside Indiana Sports.
Let's go back to the formation back in 1914 and the merger that led to the creation of Indy Premier. How did that all come about?
Yeah, so we were Fisher Soccer Club, is who I was working for at the time, and basically between Fishers and Noblesville, we kind of been working together all along because we were on the border of Hamilton County doorsteps there of communities, and we basically decided to combine our resources between what was Fisher Soccer Club, and we had 4 or 5 full-time staff, and what was Noblesville United travel program basically. And it also helped us get around a high school issue where they have an IHSA rule, a 6-player rule. So it just happened that spring of 2014, everything fell into place very quickly, and 6 years later, we just keep growing.
And the latest growth, you just put in a couple of turf fields at 161st and River Road, which is on the southern edge of Noblesville. So that's an exciting development for Indy Premier.
Yeah, so we purchased what is called Trinity Sports Park. It was 2 years ago, and we've always been looking to grow and kind of see what we can do facility-wise to make the highest caliber players and help develop the best players we can. And the issue we've always had is with grass fields, you get rained out, you have issues, there's bumps and the maintenance of it. So to my knowledge, we are the only club in Indiana that has a turf field already functional. We opened up last weekend, and then we open our other turf field this coming weekend.
What differentiates Indy Premier from other soccer clubs? Because there are a lot of soccer clubs in the state.
Yeah, I think coaching, we always pride ourselves on the fact that whether it is a first-team player that has aspirations of playing college or beyond, or it's a fourth or fifth or sixth team player, because we have loads of teams at different levels, at different age groups, that we're going to provide a best possible soccer experience with good coaching, positive soccer experience to want them to keep playing soccer throughout their life.
Partnerships, Terre Haute, South Bend up there. So again, statewide initiative.
Yeah, that's something we've been working on a long time as well, and we're always about synergy and can we combine resources, can we work with others? And I think when you can find a like-minded group of people that want what's best for players, player development, and to provide more opportunities for those players to continue to improve and get to their goals. We found that with Terre Haute Premier and then Michiana Echo Premier up in South Bend as well.
We've every Saturday you drive past, you see hundreds of kids out playing. I mean, soccer's it's still a growing sport.
Yeah. I think the success and the opportunity for kids to see and watch soccer now. When I was growing up, you had to fight to try to find a place to watch or see any kind of game. And I think today, the access to professional soccer, Premier League, La Liga, for kids to enjoy and watch, and also Indy 11 on our doorstep as well, kind of promotes the sport as a whole.
And quickly, as we wrap up, about 30 seconds, the success of the Women's World Cup, the USA Women's World Cup team, I mean, again, that captured the nation's attendance, boys, girls, adult men. I mean, everybody was watching that.
Yeah, and I think the women's team has continued to do well. I mean, the last two World Cups, they've kind of shown everybody what they have and that they're still the top in the world. And I think for any young girl, you have role models, you have players that we can aspire to be like. And I think for boy or girl, you can be proud, to be playing soccer and be from the United States.
All right, Brian Mickle from the Indy Premier, Executive Director. Thanks for being on the show.
And finally, our insiders weigh in on Indiana's top business stories. This week's panel includes Beck Communications Group President Laura Beck, Stain for Children Indiana Executive Director Justin Olemiller, and Gregory and Appel Insurance Vice President Steve Appel.
Justin, as we look at, I saw the news and there was anticipation that the strike was going to happen at General Motors, but it's, pardon the pun, struck me that I'd covered so many strike stories in the past. It had been seemingly forever since we've seen a job action like this. Did it surprise you at all? Or?
Not really, in that you've got this political dynamic playing out across the country when it comes to this battle between corporate America and lifting up the middle class. You're seeing it play out with the presidential campaign, and so to a certain extent, obviously, it's affecting Indiana through the plants and the workers in those plants. But it's really driven by national narrative. The other thing to point out is when strikes happen, traditionally they do work when the public supports them, and so this is, I think, an increasing environment where public is going to support a strike of this nature. So it's interesting to see what the leverage is.
Do you think, leverage is the key. Do you think that the UAW is perhaps banking on that, the public sentiment in this environment might be?
Potentially. The other thing, too, is there's increasing concern about a recession and where those indicators are showing. And so I'm wondering if the union is thinking, we got to get out ahead of this, because if it's a recession, they certainly are not going to have leverage in order to actually get what the workers need and want.
Well, I think no one ever goes into a strike as a lark, for example.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there's a lot of careful thought and preparation goes into it. And you have to also remember that GM has done very, very well as a company since 2008 when workers took major concessions. They have been a part of this rebirth, and there really is nothing wrong with wanting to have better pay, better health care benefits, and a lot more stability in their employment. One of the challenges, of course, is going to be that public narrative. But I think a lot of times when it's happening out there, it's what is going on in that negotiating room.
I don't know enough about the exacts of it, obviously, to make a who's wrong, who's right, and obviously anyone who's striking, it's probably pretty stressful, so I have a lot of empathy for that. Another view from more of smaller private company view of the world is, we've been fortunate to be in those best place to work environments, and you go around the room where everyone is all about how can we train, retain, and engage our employees, and just it's just a little bit of a head scratcher that in 2019 that we're not able to figure out a way to get past that impasse now, because there's so many businesses out there that really do not have an adversarial relationship with their most important assets that walk in and out of the door every day.
Yeah, it's changed a lot. So it will be interesting to see how that plays out. Some news this week affecting or impacting the governor of the state of Indiana, and also someone who wants to be a governor as well. The Indiana Chamber out with its Government Leader of the Year award, which they'll present in November to Governor Holcomb. Indiana Government Leader of the Year. As you look at that, surprising necessarily?
No, not surprising at all. Justin's laughing, but no, it's not surprising. I think that the governor is aligned with their values and where they are. So not surprising. I think it would have been bigger news had he not gotten that award, especially leading into an election year.
Yeah. Also interesting, the CEO at SupplyKick announced his intention to run for the Democratic gubernatorial nomination. Josh Owens, tech entrepreneur, a CEO throwing his hat in the ring.
Yeah, it's great to see. It's good to see new faces, new voices out there. Josh actually ran for school board in IPS, and so my organization got a chance to sit down with him during that run 4 years ago. Very smart, capable guy. I think he's going to add a lot to the governor's race. I think it's wide open on the Democratic side. And I think from my organization's perspective, I love the fact that he's leading with the issue around teacher pay. That was a strong dynamic in the session, last legislative session. I think the Governor Holcomb has pinpointed as a priority. Now I think it's great to have an opponent that's also going to elevate that to determine what vision really is going to play out when it comes to teacher pay and elevating that profession across the state.
Yeah, teacher pay, certainly a hot button issue. Do you think his business background, technology entrepreneur, will resonate with voters?
Absolutely. I think that we hear so much about the tech industry and how we can build on that. And here's somebody who has that background creating jobs and hopefully can take that and look at it for a broader perspective. Not just in central Indiana, but how do we really bridge that digital divide throughout the rest of the state? Yeah.
The story last week, we had Mayor Tom Henry on the show talking about growth and development momentum in Fort Wayne in particular, downtown. They announced this week a developer for a new $70 million mixed-use apartment and residential development. Steve, as you look at it, Indianapolis for so long has been the workhorse, if you will, of the Indiana economy, and other parts of the state have really not participated. Fort Wayne seems like they're really beginning to do their part. Is this something that can kind of catch on around the state?
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, if you look to the state to our right, Ohio, that I guess right if you're looking from top down.
If you're looking from the top, yeah.
That Ohio, Cleveland, Columbus, Cincinnati, and Indiana hasn't necessarily had that kind of same dynamic. So I think it's wonderful to have more bigger cities starting to pop up or evolve and become great places to live in Indiana as well.
Well, I've got a client actually that does a lot of work in Fort Wayne, and they are really hopping, especially in that downtown. What I think is really fascinating is you look at all of this work that's happened under Mayor Henry, and he's got a Republican majority council right now. So this is really a bipartisan effort, and we have to also look at what Fort Wayne has done as a region. You've got the partnership up there that has really worked together and really worked creatively, and I think it's really exciting to see where they're headed.
Shifting gears to Indianapolis International Airport, it seems like we're talking about the airport about every other week in terms of a new record or some honor in terms of North America's best airport, but passenger numbers came out and indicates that the airport is on track to maybe have its best record or best passenger traffic ever. Huge investment to get the airport. I keep calling it the new airport. It's not new anymore. But how important has the airport been? Has this new airport been, which had its critics at the time?
Yep. It's been hugely important. And Laura and I were teammates on the Peterson team way back when, seems like ages ago. It's hard to believe that back then there was a lot of skepticism. This is a misuse of funds. The airport's not going to be that important to the economy. And I think, quite frankly, the vision and plan put forward by Mayor Peterson and continued under Mayor Ballard has proven to be everything that vision laid out. And I think even more, frankly. I think that it's been a better scenario than what we even imagined all those years ago.
We're up to, I think it's 54 nonstop flights now, which is incredible for Indianapolis. That was never the case before. But I just think on a business analogy is usually when you build something really first class, world class, that people tend to come. And I think this airport was laid out well. It's not that big, but yet it's bright and airy, and I think it's just hitting all the cylinders.
Well, and I also was thinking about it too when we were observing the anniversary of 9/11. This was the first airport built after 9/11, and after 9/11, there was a lot of questions as to why we would be building a new airport, because air traffic would be dead, and here we are. So it's very exciting to see it, and I think we're going to continue to see it grow as we move forward.
With that, we'll put a wrap on another edition of The Insiders. Laura Beck, also Steve Appel, Justin Ohlmiller. Thank you, one and all, for joining us.
That wraps up this week's Inside Indiana Business Television podcast. Remember, you can find all of this week's TV segments, as well as the top business news from throughout the state, at InsideIndianaBusiness.com. While you're there, you can also subscribe to our platform of free e-newsletters. This is Andy Ober for Inside Indiana Business.